And welcome to this week's episode of the UFO Show on the Area 51 Sports Network, brought to you by Bet99.com. Make sure to head over to Area 51 sportsnetwork.com/betting to sign up and use our link. Once you use our link there, you can get up to $600 as an added bonus, depending on how much you put into the site. And yeah, it's a great way to earn a little bit extra cash if you're feeling lucky. So yes, today I am joined as always by the co-host Andy. Andy, how are you doing today?
Yeah, pretty good. How about yourself, Adam? How are you?
I'm good. So I know that we talked about how we were going to have a guest today, but unfortunately that did not happen. But we are going to try our best to fill in as best as possible. Now, Andy, before we start, we kind of talked about this for a second, but there was huge news in the NHL today uh, that Chipotle has signed on a multi-year deal to become the official Mexican-themed quick service and Mexican-themed fast casual restaurant of the NHL. Now, the question is, first off, I didn't know that Chipotle considered themselves Mexican food because that's a little bit offensive to Mexican food, honestly. And what I understand the big market idea, but uh, why did if you want to go with Mexican food, you want to go with like a real Mexican place? I feel like you don't want to go with like one of these places that it's questionable and you have to look at the meat before you order.
I don't know. I'm just excited that they have a fast casual sponsor because, sometimes I don't always have time to sit down for a full meal, but I don't want fast food. So now I have a fast casual alternative to pick from.
Yeah, now I'm curious about if they have like an Italian fast casual or like Japanese fast casual. Like the specificness of the term or the deal is very odd. It's very oddly worded, I feel like.
Yeah, it's, like I said, I didn't know that I needed a fast casual restaurant until about 10 minutes ago. But now that I know it, I'm a big fan. But yes, very weird wording.
Okay, so let's talk about the real big news quickly. Jack Eichel. Any thoughts on the huge Jack Eichel trade that sent Alex Tuck, Payne Krebs, a first round pick, and a second round pick to Buffalo for Jack Eichel and a third round pick?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a big trade. If he can get back to his former Jack Eichel self, I think, in my opinion, he's like the third or fourth best player in the NHL. So that's big for Vegas to get. I kind of look at it as a positive for Vancouver instead of going to Calgary, a team that Canucks probably be fighting with for a playoff spot. He goes to Vegas, who, I think Vegas is, when healthy, clearly a better team than Vancouver and probably in the sort of the tier above where Vancouver would be. So all things considered, I'm not, the most disappointed that he ended up in Vegas because I think the alternatives could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, it would have been interesting. Apparently, Carolina was in it as well, and Carolina is one of the deepest teams in the league. So we'll see what happens. The big talk now is that Vegas is going to have to sacrifice somebody, maybe a Riley Smith, a Jonathan Marchessault, because they're about $7 million over the cap once everybody comes back into play.
Mm-hmm.
So that will be interesting to see what they do because they unless they pull a Tampa Bay and Jack Eichel doesn't come back until the playoffs, this is going to get very messy very quickly in Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure exactly who they all have injured. I know most of their team right now is currently injured. So, um, you know, I think their best option is to probably activate Eichel as soon as they can and try to hold out some other players until the playoffs and kind of pull a Tampa Bay and end up. I think their cap hit right now is like 93 million. So, like you said, about 10, 11, 12 million over the cap. If they can keep their roster intact until the playoffs, I think that's probably their best bet.
Yeah, and it's weird like uh they're over the LTIR limit as well, and like there's all these like weird problems that we've never even heard of because there's just so much money on the injury reserve in Vegas.
Yeah. Well, I think they have, like $35 million in injured players. So,
Yeah. And this is a huge gamble because a lot of people are saying you get rid of Alex Tuck, that could be. And if Jack Eichel doesn't return for the season, this could be very dicey, and Vegas could miss the playoffs because right now, they're not doing so hot.
Yeah, I mean they're definitely struggling right now, but I think they have, off the top of my head, they have Stone, Pacioretty, now Jack Eichel, Alex Tuck was injured. Like, yeah, they're struggling, but they're also missing like literally half their team. So, kind of one of those things. What did you expect, really?
Yeah, so 8 points in 9 games for the Vegas Golden Knights so far this season. That's something to watch. But why don't we jump a little bit into the NFL for tonight, the game that is starting in about an hour, the New York Jets versus the Indianapolis Colts. Now, I was talking to you a little bit about this earlier because right now they have the New York Jets at plus 400, Indianapolis Colts at minus 500, and the line's at plus 10. Um, I actually feel like this is kind of a trap game for Indianapolis, and putting money on the Jets isn't the worst decision out there because the Jets have 2 wins, Indianapolis has 3 wins. And even though Indianapolis has been solid, the Jets, this feels like one of those games where if the Jets are going to pull off it just feels like the Jets are going to win somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I get your line of thinking here, but the Jets are not a good team, like at all. At least Indianapolis has a few playmakers. They have Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor's pretty good. Like the Jets are starting Mike White or Mark White. I don't even know what his name is. Second career start. They're terrible on offense. They're terrible on defense. I could see them maybe keeping it close, but I would be very surprised if Indianapolis doesn't win this game.
Yeah, it like we said, this is one of those where we don't really know. Yeah, it's gonna be difficult because the defenses aren't that great to start with. Both of them aren't the best defenses out there, so it may be yeah, it might be an offensive game. I don't think White is going to throw for over 400 yards again,
No.
but one big thing to watch is that T.Y. Hilton is out for the New York or for the Indianapolis Colts. So that is something to pay attention to because he is I think he's yeah, Michael Pittman I think has kind of emerged as their number one wide receiver, but T.Y. Hilton is still a pretty good wide receiver to have as a secondary option.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, I think Pittman's probably the number one right now, but Hilton isn't, he's not a bad number two option at all. So, biggest thing for me in this game is Carson Wentz. And, is he going to be able to protect the ball? Is he going to be able to not force plays and not create unnecessary turnovers? Like, was it last week around his own end zone? He was sort of falling, and as he was going backwards, kind of threw the ball in the air, and it got, picked off and returned for like a 6-yard touchdown. But, if he would have just fell down, they basically run out the clock and play for overtime, right? So, honestly, I think that's probably what's going to happen in this game is Carson Wentz is either going to manage it and the Colts will win, or Carson Wentz finds a way to blow the game and sort of hand the Jets a victory.
So let's jump into a couple other games and then we'll finish it off today with some talk about the Whitecaps because they have a big game this week on MLS Super Sunday. I do want to start with your Green Bay Packers. They are at plus 260. Kansas City's at minus 320. Now it came out earlier that Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if we can say that he lied about being vaccinated because he said that he was immunized. He never actually said the words "I am vaccinated," but he has COVID, and yeah, I don't know what to really say about the situation. I think Jordan Love is going to be their starting quarterback. So, could this be the end of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay now that this whole situation has come out?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, I think we can say that he did lie about being vaccinated. I mean, like you said, Adam, he didn't explicitly say the words "I am vaccinated," but he hinted at it. He gave everybody the impression he was vaccinated when he wasn't. As for your question about Rodgers being done in Green Bay, I've always thought this was his last season, anyways. Personally, I don't think the Packers could win the Super Bowl with Jordan Love. They're kind of all in on this season with Rodgers to win a Super Bowl. So, I assume Rodgers is probably going to be suspended or, not be able to play for a few weeks for whatever reason. But I do think that the Packers will welcome him back when he is cleared to play again.
Yeah, like this is a difficult situation because now you get to the point where it's like the Packers knew that he wasn't vaccinated, and there's all this talk about was he following all the rules of unvaccinated players, because some people say that he wasn't. So this is a very, very difficult situation that the Packers are finding themselves in, and I wouldn't be surprised if the NFL steps in here because this situation is just getting way out of hand.
I think the NFL has to step in. Like if you look at the COVID protocols, if you're unvaccinated, you're supposed to be wearing a mask at all times in the facility, except when eating. You're not supposed to be meeting with the media in person. You have to do it over Zoom, mask on sideline, etc. I mean, Packers have another player, Alan Lazard, who is unvaccinated, and he's been meeting with the media on Zoom and following the protocols, and Aaron Rodgers hasn't been. So, I mean, what is the point in having these COVID protocols if you're not going to enforce them, right? So, very clearly, Rodgers is not vaccinated by NFL definition, and he hasn't been following the guidelines. So, in my opinion, that constitutes a suspension, a fine, probably both, right? Like you broke the rules; they were very clear. You agreed to them, and you didn't follow them. So, there has to be a consequence.
Okay, so let's jump into some other games from the week that are kind of interesting. We have another, I don't want to say a guaranteed win, but Buffalo at minus 1,000, Jacksonville at plus 750. That's the big line of the week. I don't think that there's much really discussion. Jacksonville lost to Geno Smith over the weekend, and they got absolutely hammered. So, yeah, that's one. That's a game. Sometimes we look at these huge lines and we say, "Oh well, it pays to take the under or the underdog." But this one, I just don't. This one, there's no point to even really looking into.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo shuts out Jacksonville, to be honest. They have one of, if not the best defense in the NFL. Like you said, Jacksonville struggled to beat Geno Smith and struggled even more with a terrible Seahawks defense. Like I said, I would be not at all surprised to see Jacksonville shut out in this game. I think Buffalo's going to be all over Trevor Lawrence. I could see multiple interceptions, fumbles. It's going to be a bloodbath and not in a good way for Jacksonville.
Hey, as long as they don't touch the hair, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm sure he has insurance on his hair now.
Yeah. The Anchorman rules: no touching of the hair or face.
That's right.
So there are some interesting lines here going into this week. One is Carolina at plus 160 over New England at minus 180. I know Carolina has struggled a bit, but they're getting Christian McCaffrey back this week. And I know that it's hard to bet against the New England Patriots, but this is a game where I kind of look at it and say, with McCaffrey back, Carolina does have a pretty good chance to pull off an upset here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Patriots defense isn't what it used to be. Stephon Gilmore obviously is now playing on Carolina. Mac Jones hasn't really shown an ability so far to throw the deep ball or do anything except sort of hand it off and check down slants, that kind of thing. So with McCaffrey back, I think Chuba Hubbard has been, fairly solid too. I think with those two backs, Carolina can probably just control the clock and try to win like 17-10 or, 14-10 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that will be interesting. We have the battle of the Deshaun Watson rumors here this week. Houston Texans, Miami Dolphins. Houston's at plus 205, Miami's at minus 240. I don't, Houston is just a is kind of a tire fire right now, but so is the Miami Dolphins. But if I were to put my faith into one quarterback, I'd probably put it into Tua for this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Houston is going to start Tyrod Taylor. I think Tyrod Taylor and Tua are kind of the similar production value quarterbacks. You know what? Based on this line, plus 205 for Houston, that's not a terrible return on your money for Houston. I think, like you said, Miami's probably the better team and probably should win. But if you're looking for a purely odds play, Houston 205 might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, that one will be pretty. That will be one to watch for sure. I don't think it's going to be a good game, but I
Oh,
think it's going to
definitely
be
not.
a close game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good way to put it. I mean, even the 5.5 point spread is a little bit surprising when you consider that Houston is plus 205, right? You think that big of an underdog would be a bit bigger spread.
So this one is an interesting one. The Las Vegas Raiders at the New York Giants. So Vegas is at minus 170. The Giants are at plus 150. And usually the line would be a lot farther apart on this one. But I think that because of the Henry Ruggs situation that occurred, that they're taking into that account that the team may be a little bit shaken up, the Vegas Raiders, and that the New York Giants may have a better shot at this game than we thought. Because honestly, that organization has been going through uh, a ton over the last couple weeks, and it's going to be hard for them to really focus, especially with one of their teammates being convicted or being charged with murder in a DUI. So that when it comes to a betting perspective on that game, you have to take that into account when betting if you're going to bet on the Raiders this week.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, let's clarify Henry Ruggs hasn't been charged with murder. He's been charged with DUI, causing significant bodily harm or death. Um, you know, I agree. He did murder somebody, but just for a clarification's sake. But you're right. Like, I don't know what to expect from the Raiders. 2-3 weeks ago, we had the whole John Gruden thing. Now we have Henry Ruggs. I could see the team coming out and blowing out the Giants. I could also see them being very distracted. Other thing to consider here too is the Giants on Monday Night Football kept it really close with the Chiefs. Through the whole game, I think they only lost by 4 points. So Giants are 2-6, but they seem to be playing a little bit better than their record might indicate. So, you know what, this game I might actually look at the Giants plus 150 money line and plus 3.5 spread and just take the Giants just because I think the Raiders have like you mentioned, a very good reason to not necessarily be 100% focused on this game.
Okay, so battle of the NFC West this week as the Arizona Cardinals at plus 110 take on the San Francisco 49ers at minus 125. In my mind, that's an easy bet. You take Arizona at plus 110. The Arizona, like the Cardinals are just better. They're a better team than the 49ers.
Yeah, I agree. And with the 49ers, Jimmy's been kind of up and down at quarterback. Yeah, I'm very surprised that honestly that you can get a 7-1 team as a plus plus odds, an underdog in this game. So I agree with you. Take Arizona plus 110 and run before they change that line.
Yeah, that one's an interesting one to watch out for. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Canuck game tomorrow, and then we'll jump right into the MLS weekend for the last couple minutes. Canucks are at minus 123 to win against the Nashville Predators at plus 100. The line is minus 1.5 on it. So do you think the Canucks can take down the Predators tomorrow night?
I do, yeah. I watched the third period of the Predators Oilers game last night. Nashville didn't play terrible, but they just don't seem to have the star power obviously like Edmonton or even like Vancouver, where when they need a goal or need somebody to make a big play, there's just nobody there who can do it. And I really think that Canucks win on was it Monday night? You could see just by the players' reaction when they finally won in overtime there, just how much relief and sort of like anxiousness was just gone, right? They were just happy to win. So I think the Canucks, are in a good frame of mind coming into this game. Nashville's obviously played Calgary and Edmonton here the last couple of days. They're on a end of a road trip. Yeah, I would take the Canucks in this game, but I don't think they're going to win by 2 or more. I think it'll probably be a 1-goal game, maybe even overtime. So probably just money line on this one for me.
Yeah, the problem with the Nashville is that when they're down a goal, they just can't score.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think their first line center is Granlund right now. So that tells you everything that you need. And I don't think it's Marcus Granlund, isn't it? It's not even Mikael Granlund.
No, it's the one who didn't play for the Canucks, so Mikhail, I think. Anyways, the
See,
point is
like we
we
don't even
have
know. Yeah, it's Mikael Granlund. It's not
yeah,
Marcus Granlund. I was
yeah.
listening to Sportsnet 650 this morning, and they were talking about Marcus Granlund, so it threw me off a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, that's Nashville is not a like. It's going to be the battle of potentially Vesna goaltenders and UC Saros versus Thatcher Demko. So it's going to be a tight game for sure.
Yeah, it'll be like I said. I think it'll be a close game. I could even see overtime. But you're right. Nashville has $8 million in Ryan Johansson, and I think Matt Duchene's around 8 million too. And neither one of them are their number one center, right? So that kind of tells you the state of Nashville and the lack of star power, or somebody to dictate a game like we talked about.
Yeah, as Francesco once tweeted out, this is going to be so tight.
That's right. Yeah, so tight, almost feels like a playoff game.
Exactly. Okay, so let's run down this Super Sunday here in the MLS because it is wild. Um, so the Whitecaps, they're not guaranteed into the playoffs, but they're basically guaranteed. Like the odds that they're going to make it are very very high. Um, so I have it right here. If for the Whitecaps to not make the playoffs, they have to uh, lose to Seattle. LAFC has to beat Colorado. RSL has to beat Sporting Kansas City. The LA Galaxy have to get a draw or a win versus Minnesota. So let's run down some of those games here. The Whitecaps are at 6 right now. If they do win and Minnesota loses, then they play the Portland Timbers in the first round, which will be interesting to watch. So right now, Vancouver versus Seattle. Vancouver to win is at plus 175. Seattle's at plus 145. And I think one of the reasons behind that is that they take into account that Vancouver is on a huge hot streak, and that Seattle, even though that they want that first round bye, Vancouver is kind of playing for more here than Seattle.
Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting, right? Because I think if I understand the breakdown correctly, all Vancouver needs to do is tie and they make the playoffs, right? If they get 1 point. So like you said, Seattle's playing for number one seed, but I could also see Seattle just kind of, resting some of their better players, sort of taking it easy and this being like a 0-0 draw, just get both teams into the playoffs and kind of go from there. So, I'm not really sure what to expect. I hope the Whitecaps go out and try to win and really keep up their hot streak, like you mentioned, but I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of just park the bus and play for the draw and get in the playoffs.
Okay, so let's run through some of these other games to see how plausible this situation is. So the LAFC needs to beat the Colorado Rapids. That's the first thing that has to happen. So Colorado is right now third in the West with 58 points. LAFC is ninth in the West with 45 points. Colorado is plus 122. LA is plus 190. So LA has to win that game. LAFC is a pretty good team. I wouldn't put it past them to win that game, but Colorado just seems like a deeper, like Colorado doesn't play exciting football, but they play good enough to win. I think that's a good explanation of the Colorado Rapids.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to defer to you on this. I don't watch a ton of MLS, but based on the standings, I think that's a pretty accurate description of those two teams.
Okay, so the other one is RSL. has to beat Sporting Kansas City. So Sporting Kansas City is right now at 45 points. They're eighth in the division. They have a goal differential of 0. Sporting Kansas City is second in the West with 58 points. They have a goal differential of 19. So if we check those odds for that game, it is Sporting Kansas City at minus 140, RSL at plus 350. So that might tell you that the Whitecaps have a pretty good opportunity here because RSL is facing such a juggernaut that is expected to go pretty far into the playoffs. So that's something to watch as well. Then the last thing that has to happen is that the LA Galaxy have to win or get a draw against Minnesota. Now, this one is very possible. LA is at 47 points. Minnesota is at 48 points. Minnesota doesn't really deserve to be in the playoffs. Like, they're not the best of teams, but you know what? They did what they had to do to get there. So that one is possible. But I think that if you are, if you're putting down, you can't really put down a lot of bets as in like if the Whitecaps are going to make the playoffs or not. But I do feel like that if you're going to put down bets maybe with friends, the odds will tell you that the Whitecaps have a probably close to a 95% chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know a ton about MLS, but based on that rundown, like, three things have to go right in other games, and the Whitecaps have to lose in order for them to not make the playoffs. Like, it's not a guarantee, but I'd say, like you said, a 95, I'd even say 99% chance they're in.
Yeah, but knowing the Whitecaps and how Vancouver fans have been toyed with over the past, if they don't make the playoffs, don't be surprised because that has Vancouver written all over it. Somehow multiple teams come out of nowhere and win and the Whitecaps lose and miss the playoffs. I wouldn't be surprised that way either, but the odds will tell you the Whitecaps should make it in. The question is, are they going to make it past the first round if they have to play a team like Sporting Kansas City or a team like Portland or Colorado? That's the big question, which, you know what, they have a chance, but we'll save that for a couple weeks from now.
Yeah. Yeah,
So before we
exactly.
wrap up here, Andy, is there any other bets this week that look very interesting to you?
Yeah, the only other bet that looked interesting to me, I just lost it here, was the Sunday night football game this week. I'll just pull it back up here so I have the correct odds, which is the Tennessee Titans, LA Rams. Obviously, LA loaded up, went all in, acquiring Von Miller. Tennessee 6-2 versus LA Rams 7-1. Tennessee is actually plus 275 on the money line and a +7 spread. Now it's unclear if they're going to have Derrick Henry in this game or not. If the Titans don't have Derrick Henry, I can see this being a double-digit blowout for the Rams. So I actually like the Rams here. -7 pays out -115. I like -7. I'd even go up to -7.5, which pays out a +100.
Yeah, so as we understand it, Derrick Henry might be out for the year because he just had foot surgery. So they've signed Adrian Peterson to be their lead back. So Adrian Peterson was a fantastic running back in his prime.
Yeah, 10
But
years ago.
yeah, but he's not like the fastest. He has a very Derrick Henry type of play in that he just kind of bowls people over. But Derrick Henry is special. He was if he stayed healthy the whole year, that's somebody that could be in the MVP candidate at the end of the season.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he was a legitimately MVP candidate. And like you said, I think it's a huge loss for Tennessee, and they'll probably make the playoffs only because they're in a division with Jacksonville and Houston. But any chance of them winning any playoff games pretty much disappear if Henry's gone for the year.
Yes. Okay, well, I guess we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much for joining us on episode 19 of the UFO Show. The show is now legally allowed to drink in Canada, so it's been, It's been going on for a while now, which is great to see.
Mhm.
If you are going to put a bet down on Bet99 Sportsbook, bet99.com, make sure to head over to the area51sportsnetwork.com/betting. There you can use a link. Once you put down up to $600, you can get however much you put down up to $600 back in a bonus. So make sure to check that out. So for Andy, I'm Adam, and thank you very much for watching this week's episode of the UFO Show.